Yo, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. We have the first roadmap update in a long while, and with it brings a little bit more understanding of what to expect on the road to Star Citizen 1.0. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys, so thank you so much for the support. It is truly appreciated. So CIG have updated their roadmap with new additions including 4.02, 4.1 and 1.0 for now. Now understandably, this might be a little confusing as to what it all means, so today I would like to break it all down and explain what is what. Before that though, for those interested, my first camping video is up on my new YouTube channel, so if that is of interest to you, check the link below to that channel and you can watch me get blown around in gale force winds. And I look forward to seeing you over there. Be sure to drop a comment and let me know what you think. Now, on the roadmap roundup, Cloud Imperium reiterate how their focus this year is the ongoing improvement to playability, which includes refining how they manage feature development, with features now being developed in a separate branch that will be then migrated over when they are ready. Plus, with there being a lot more narratively driven patches this year, a few of the new features on the release view have been redacted, as not to spoil them before they are ready to release. For the Star Citizen 1.0 column on the release view, this, they say, represents the features and content that are planned for Star Citizen 1.0, but of course we won't have to wait until 1.0 releases to see them or experience them. The features listed there will move left into other patches when they come along as well. Now, what this means is that whatever you see in the 1.0 column, these will release between now and the run-up to 1.0's official release, which is going to be a few years off yet. So this means that patches like 4.2, 4.3, 4.10 even, if that is what's needed and so on, will have features move from the 1.0 column into the appropriate column when they are ready to release. Also, there may be many more additions and updates to come, including possible changes and additions to the immediate columns, like I suppose 4.1, and they will get back to the 2-weekly update for the roadmap so we can continue to see what is coming. Now, I get that this can seem a little confusing, but basically, all of the features are essentially going to be in for when 1.0 releases, but between now and the release of 1.0, these features and many more will release to the live persistent universe for us to experience. Right, let's just briefly check out the Star Citizen 4.0.2 column, which I suspect will be releasing to live today, in fact. Now, there is only the one new addition to 4.0.2, which is this Supply or Die in-game event that we heard about on Inside Star Citizen the other day. Aside from that, there is nothing else new. So moving on to Star Citizen 4.1, the tentative release window for this patch is Q1, Q2, so I suspect it'll be sort of targeted around March, April, maybe a little bit later. And my guess is, if all goes to plan, as we have heard, there we'll be seeing around 10 patches this year. The interim patches like 4.01, 4.02 will mostly be playability, stability, and quality of life updates, with, I guess, the usual quarterly patches like 4.1, 4.2, and so on, holding a bit more beefier features and content. I don't know that for certain, but I assume this is the direction they're going. Now, for characters in this 4.1 patch, there is a new redacted mission giver, which it says is a new mission giver bringing fresh opportunities for players to explore. And I assume it is a mission giver that we have not yet seen offering contracts. It could be one that is an old mission giver being revamped, but I don't know. But this will be nice to get back into having actual faces for missions again, rather than just MOBIGlass updates. There is also a new redacted armor set, which says a rugged and stylish new armor set tailored for brave adventurers facing new dangers. Now, no idea what type of armor this is. It sounds like it could be for exploration, perhaps, but time will tell. Next, for gameplay, we have new space combat missions featuring improved scenario design and refined storytelling, and it's going to be interesting to see how they incorporate all of this work that they have done with the new mission system, the AI, and just see how all that comes together and plays out. I'd still very much prefer to see simple NPC request missions, more so really than these long-winded narrative missions, but all in good time, I'm sure. Now, there is also a new redacted sandbox activity, and this one says A new open-ended activity blending on-foot exploration with aerial support, creating sandbox gameplay opportunities for daring teams. Now, if I was to guess at what this is going to be, I would think it is the Sandworm, the Valakar, monster hunting on Monarchs gameplay that we saw at CitizenCon. That sounds about right with on-foot and aerial support, and I can't think of what else it could be, so that would be my guess. Now for locations, we have the Redacted Mission Giver's redacted location, and it says this is a specially designed location to host the new Mission Giver, giving a new hub for players to engage in these opportunities. Again, no idea who this character is, so I don't know what to expect from their location, so I'm not even going to guess. Now next up for locations, we have the Hathor Ground Alignment Stations, which says strategically placed Hathor-operated outposts providing key infrastructure and sandbox gameplay opportunities for planetary operations. Now this is pretty intriguing, as this and the next location, being the Hathor Mining Space Stations, were both locations set up for Theaters of War Arena Commander game mode, which never came about. Now, I don't think that this means we're going to see Theaters of War suddenly appear. It could, but I think this is more utilizing the location that they had previously built and dropping them in the Pyro system. Again, it could be Arena Commander related, but it might just be used as a point of interest in Pyro, although I'm not sure if that coincides with the lore. Now, as new locations for missions and content, I would be very happy to see these come along, as they were pretty interesting spots, but we'll have to see what Cloud Imperium are planning. As I say, it could be more Arena Commander related, which if it is Theaters of War, I would be very happy to see that come along. And then finally, for 4.1, we have two new Vault weapons, being the Parallax AR, or Assault Rifle, and the Quartz Submachine Gun. A cool pair of weapons from a cool new manufacturer, and there will be more to come in subsequent patches, I'm sure. So that's currently what is slated to release in Alpha 4.1. Again, Quarter 1, Quarter 2. I'm sure we will see more new additions come along, hopefully nothing slipping, but oftentimes that is the nature. Now, let us move on to Star Citizen 1.0. There are 53 new additions for this 1.0 column. Again, they won't all release in a 1.0 patch. Many will be shifted into different patches like 4.3 or 4.8, basically whenever they are ready. The first one for characters is Starware. Now, this will likely still require quite a bit more work before it is ready, but it's not something that we should be waiting too long for. This includes things like physical cloth simulation, layering armor and clothing together, plus many meaningful trade-offs to wearing one item versus another item. Hopefully it's something that can come in this year, as I know some of the NPCs are already utilizing this combination of armor and clothing in Pyro, so whether it needs to all come in one go or if it can be incrementally released, I don't know, but I don't think we're going to be waiting too long. In Core Tech, we have Star Sim, which is the back-end system and tools for simulating the state of the universe and its economy and dynamically responding to players' actions. Now, this essentially was what the quantum simulation was that Tony Zurovec was working on, and likely still is, to be fair, as much as he is emeritus now. That doesn't mean he's gone for good. I'm sure he still has quite a bit to do with it, but likely still a bit off before it's ready to release. Again, it could be something that can come in incrementally, but obviously a huge system that will impact the game on a big scale. Now, content instancing relates to allowing both existing and new content to be instanced for crafted group gameplay and experiences. This we heard at CitizenCon recently and should allow for a lot of very varied and rewarding progression in different areas of Star Citizen. This is probably something that will be, I would say at least a couple of years away, really, maybe a year, as they are still refining the instancing tech. As we have seen with hangars, it's created a bit of a headache. So I'm not expecting it anytime soon, but once they get it refined, there is no end to its possibilities for introducing new gameplay. Dynamic server meshing is pretty self-explanatory. It is taking what we have now and making the servers dynamic rather than static. Hopefully this can come along this year. Building upon static server meshing might be more of a next year thing, but I'm quite confident they can do it this year. We'll see. Now, Star Audio, which is a new suite of tools and technology to improve the quality and fidelity of sound in Star Citizen. This we will see, I'm sure, incrementally roll out with new realistic audio for ships, for weapons, for locations, and everything in between. Star Citizen's audio is desperately in need of this. It has some pretty decent stuff already, but it is very inconsistent, and this Star Audio has been in the works for a good few years. And last we heard, they're at the place where they can start rolling it out, so hopefully 4.1 and onwards, areas will get improvement. Next, we have Global Illumination. This, again, we heard recently, is getting worked into Squadron 42, so no idea when it will come to the persistent universe, but hopefully we can see it this year, as I am eagerly awaiting to see what Star Citizen will look like once this is in, especially when things like the next few features roll out, that I'll speak about now. So, Genesis Starcitect. That's the next one. We again heard about this at CitizenCon, and this tool will be used to scatter ground locations based on environmental and designer data to populate the planets at scale. A lot of planets are very barren, there's not a lot of points of interest there. Not that everywhere needs to be cluttered, they know that, but a lot of places do need more points of interest to feel like a living, breathing universe that makes sense to the lore. Now, I'm really excited to see this come along, as there will be clusters of hundreds of planetary locations, all in a small area, that will then make up sectors, which are made up of those multiple clusters. And that will result in thousands of planet-side points of interest on the appropriate planets, offering no end of locations and content for missions. No idea when to expect this. Is it going to be something that we can see come along incrementally? Probably to certain planets and before others. But this is going to really expand on just so many places to stumble upon, visit, mission locations, and so much more. Can't wait. Now, following on from what we have with Genesis, we also have PlanetTech version 5. And this is the latest gen of planetary tech and tools, helping with world creation, increasing scale, complexity, and believability. Like new biomes, mineable and harvestable scattering, soil types, seasons, and so much more. I really hope we start to see this roll out as soon as possible, and they did say that it'll be incremental, so not all at once. So here's hoping 4.1 could see the start of this, or more likely post 4.1. Following on with Genesis, we have another one, which is dynamic weather. Definitely one that I am desperate to see. This is going to be a huge addition to the game when it comes in, resulting in anything that we do now feeling more interesting and diverse based entirely on just the weather alone. Rainstorms, lightning, and so much more. Different types of weather, ones that we know about, ones that we've never seen before. It is a true weather simulation that makes sense based on the planet itself and the locations and conditions at any given time. And I can't wait for that. I hope to see this come in as soon as possible, because since they got clouds moving on certain planets like Bloom, hopefully we're not far off from seeing a rainstorm. Okay, so moving on to gameplay. Now, we have 30 entries here, so I'll be as brief as possible, starting with Quantum Boost, which we saw at CitizenCon a couple of years back now, and is likely being refined in Squadron 42, but this offers a quick boost ability to get out of danger. Plus, there is this more updated and improved quantum travel system, eventually. This, I suspect, will make its way into the PU sometime this year. I don't think they're going to hold on it for too long. And hopefully as they continue to refine it in Squadron, it'll get ready pretty quickly. The guild system is next, as again we saw at CitizenCon, and we will hear more about this later in the vid, but this offers players guilds to work for, doing various things based on the guild, and earn more creds, more reputation, and better rewards. And likely something that will roll out incrementally as well, as they become available over time. Now next, we have a very important new addition, which is insurance, taxes, and warranty. Now this is something that we are in desperate need of for different reasons, but ultimately it'll just give a lot more weight to keeping and maintaining your vehicles, rather than reclaiming them, amongst many other aspects as well. This system will also handle things like medical insurance, item insurance, vehicle insurance, so it touches many facets. Taxes, which is for when you have a base, and warranties allowing you to claim things back and so on. It is a big, very important system that will definitely help in a lot of other areas as well. But of course, before they start bringing in more punishments and things like that, we need more bug fixes. But I don't know if this is something that can come out slowly, incrementally, or if it is something that needs to come in its entirety, because they all have knock-on effects. So yeah, we'll see. But again, hope to see this soon, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be a couple of years away at least, because there is a lot to figure out. Now, law and security is next, which is implementing an updated system that handles law infractions along with security responses to criminal activity. So another important system that will certainly help to reduce the amount of things like griefing or murder hobo behavior, giving more consequence to actions and making it more challenging as well. And I do believe this is a system that could roll out incrementally as time goes on, just bringing in better security in places, updating the laws and how that impacts the players. It shouldn't have to come all at once, so hopefully we can see that roll out soon. We also have Reputation version 2, which is a new reputation system with the guilds and rewards, plus the addition of an improved reputation app for the MOBIGLASS. A very helpful system that will certainly help players keep tabs on all of their progression with the various guilds, and hopefully cater for player-to-player reputation as well, like the beacon system, being able to rate a player on their job, and if they're obviously trolls, you can let people know that. If they're very good at their job, you can give them a high star rating and so on. Now the next card is called New Player Professions, and this says the addition of new player professions to the persistent universe. Now, I have no idea what this is referring to. Could it be relating to stuff we already know about in terms of professions? I personally don't think so, because they would have specified it was bounty hunting or exploration or farming. I think this is probably more alternate professions, maybe sub-professions in the various main profession archetypes. I could be wrong, but I am intrigued. Now, Death of a Spaceman is also listed here, which, if you are unaware, is the introduction of a permadeath system and associated consequences. Now, this will take a lot of refining, and of course, what we are playing now, in terms of how often and easily death comes along, is not how it will be in the finished version. There will be a lot of other aspects to consider, but one main facet about this Death of a Spaceman mechanic is that it will cause players to slow down, think, plan, and prepare more, rather than just running around like headless chickens. Otherwise, you will lose quite a bit of stuff. And again, the various aspects of Death of a Spaceman will come along over time, not to mention bug fixing, balancing, and all that kind of stuff. It is all a big part of this system, and it is a major system, and it needs to be right before the game officially releases. So there will be a lot of testing, a lot of trial and error. When it does start to roll out properly, that will get refined over time. Now, AI blades are on this list, and as we know, this will be a component that will automate various operations on a vehicle, such as turrets, for example. Now, this shouldn't be too far off from rolling in, as certain things already use AI, like I suppose the PDCs and so forth, but this opens up a lot of potential for what these blades can handle, but balance, as always, will be a big factor here. Next, we have item misfire and wear, and this relates to weapons, items, and generally everything in the game degrading, aging, or getting damaged, and then requiring either a replacement, a repair, or ideally maintenance to ensure peak performance and less misfires and malfunctions. Now, no idea when to expect this system, but I think it is something that we will see sooner rather than later, as this has been on the cards for a long, long while. Now, Fire Hazard, Life Support, and Engineering are all individual cards on this 1.0 column, and should not be too far from releasing either, as it was on the cards for the initial 4.0 release before the whole reprioritization happened. Plus, I believe we have heard that work has picked back up on this, so I assume it'll be likely a 4.2 or later for all of this. There's no need to go into them, as I'm sure we all know what they are. Charge and Drain is another one that we have heard quite a bit about in the past, and was also supposed to release in 4.0, but was also pushed. So similarly to the engineering stuff, I expect to see this come along relatively quickly this year, and will offer a lot of diversity to missions and puzzle solving, plus items and weaponry like tools. Having a battery capacity and having to manage that will just add more facets to FPS. Now, Solar Flare is one that, again, should not be too long until it releases, as this was in the Pyro playground when we were experiencing that a little while back. My guess is that they probably want the engineering mechanic in first to have the interference from a solar flare systemic on the vehicle's components rather than it just being faked. So I guess engineering, then we'll see solar flares. Or maybe at the same time. Next we have vehicle radar and scanning rework, and the introduction of the FPS radar and scanning system as well, both of which are desperately needed and will open up a ton of potential gameplay and opportunities in many areas. Having profession and ship-specific radars that excel in their role with trade-offs, but also offering new professions like exploration. This is quite a big one for me actually, and I hope it'll come along soon. They have put a lot of work into this for quite some time already, so I'm hoping we can see this roll out pretty sharpish this year, as it will certainly help to elevate what we already have. Now, control surfaces are also on the 1.0 list, but like many of the features related to flight, there are a lot of moving parts that all need to come along around the same time, as we heard. So I'm hoping this year is the year that we can start to see this stuff roll out, as I am desperate to have that realistic atmospheric flight experience, but it's a big undertaking alongside all the rest of the features, so we will see. There is also a deliverable for hangar updates, which says expanding our personal hangars with new upgrades, layouts, and functional improvements. Now this means more rooms like armories, firing ranges, living spaces, and so much more. The scope for options here is huge, and although I'm not expecting this anytime soon, it's still great to know that these are on the cards, and I look forward to seeing what they can come up with in terms of what we will be able to buy to upgrade our hangars. And it would make a great money sink as well, paying credits for additional hangar upgrades. Can't wait. Weapon overheat is one that we have seen a few times in the past and will act as you would imagine. The longer you are using a weapon of whatever type, the more it will overheat. So managing that aspect will be part of the skill for these weapons, and also act as a balance against other weapon types. This could come anytime, I presume, as it's been in the works for a while, so I don't think it'll be too long until it's implemented. Now, radiation will be a new hazard for players to be aware of that will in turn impact the player in various ways, like sickness and, of course, eventually death. It also says there will be specific locations that have dangerous levels of radiation, requiring players to use specialized gear and problem solve to get access. Now this is going to be a nice addition that can open up a lot more interesting gameplay and require things like environmental suits and tools to protect yourself or see if there's radiation. But also I suspect if, for example, like a quantum drive starts to malfunction on your ship, we could see radiation leaks and hazards on board your ship and you'll need to deal with them. Player space stations, crafting and base building are all here of course for the 1.0 list, each one bringing their own unique and massive impact on the game when they arrive. Likelihood is crafting will roll out incrementally over time with more recipes and materials and such. Base building will come along in its infancy, hopefully towards the end of the year, but I think it is far more likely next year. I can't imagine it's a 2025 feature at all, but we should certainly see much of its development throughout the year, with a look to roll it out in 2026. And player space stations, absolutely no time soon. This will be a long-term goal before 1.0, of course, but still not one that we will see anytime soon. All of these very exciting in their own right, and I can't wait to see them all come along, but we will certainly see them evolve over the years. Now, another feature I suspect we will see pretty soon are new missions, location repair. Now, these were again an initial 4.0 intended drop, but due to bugs got removed. These shouldn't be too far behind a 4.1 release, maybe a 4.1 point patch perhaps. I really enjoyed doing this in the 4.0 preview, but I never actually completed a single mission, so understandably they were removed, they need fixing, but when they come, I look forward to getting on with them again. Next, we have a big one, which is player-to-player trading, so implementing the ability for players to set up shops and sell items to other players. Now I guess maybe once base building is here, this kind of thing can really flourish. I already trade with a lot of other players in-game, but this will give us a safe location to store and sell and present our items or even browse other players' wares. So much can come from this, as you can basically be a trader of anything, even ships. Player organizations is another one I'm looking forward to, as we saw at CitizenCon, it really expands on the organization front, giving a lot more control and uses for orgs and managing them in and out of game. This is a majorly important one for myself, and I hope that we can see this roll out a bit at a time with more functionality as it comes along. It might be more of an all-at-once kind of thing, but I just don't know. The social MOBIGLASS app is another one that kind of ties into this somewhat, but mostly handles your friends list and contracts. This will be used for creating and finding groups, but ultimately a full social refactor is needed first to improve what we have, including VoIP, and then we can see this come along from there. So maybe a while yet, as the transit refactor is priority, but it's nice to know it's on the cards. Now, citizenship is its own standalone card, which says elevate your status in the verse by becoming a citizen to gain unique rewards and benefits. Now, this, having its own card, means there is certainly going to be a lot more to becoming a citizen, both pros and cons. It'll be very interesting to see what other rewards citizenship offers, as this has been a pretty hot topic for quite a while, but at this time, I'm not going to start listing anything. Planetary Shields is next, and this is another one that we heard about at CitizenCon recently, where they will basically protect planet-side locations, like homesteads and bases, from hostile attacks. And these will be pretty much impenetrable, so it makes sense that it has its own card to create them, as they are a pretty big system to work out. And then the final card for gameplay is Ownership. Now, this is a very important card, which says implementing a robust ownership system for items, vehicles, and more, including the ability to transfer ownership both legally and illegally. So this impacts many things, like loaning items or vehicles to other players, a much needed option for orgs, but also the ability to find or obtain a ship, both legally and illegally, and acquire ownership over it. And as we heard at CitizenCon, for criminals, you could steal a ship and then pay to kind of illegally make it yours, but also legitimate finds and claims of disowned ships need to be an option too. So essentially, you might find a derelict, unowned ship that can be fixed up, and then legally claim it as your own, paying a few credits, however we go about doing so. So it's a huge deal, and very important in a game like Star Citizen, and I'm very happy to see that as its own dedicated card on the 1.0 roadmap. No idea how this is going to roll out, if it's going to be something we see come incrementally from a certain point onwards, or if it's more of a full system. We will have to see. Now, next up we have locations, starting with utility tunnels, and these are new location archetypes that bring sandbox content to landing zones, for example, ArcCorp's Municipal Works. Now, this is something that can potentially add a large amount of new, very interesting missions and gameplay, from, say, scary derelict-style investigation missions, engineering or maintenance missions, or combat missions, and anything else they can think of. And if you are listening, Cloud Imperium, I would just love a basic pest control mission that scales. That would be kind of cool. A bit like we see in the Elder Scrolls series. Anyway, leading on from this, we have building interiors. This was a mandate that made significant progress quite a while back, but was halted as people were drafted on to work on the distribution centres. It has since been picked back up with, and will include many building interior spaces at landing zones and other points of interest, offering internal space for all sorts of things, like commercial or even residential internals as well, like apartments and housing for players. So hopefully we can see this roll out at the various landing zones throughout this year, and then for the foreseeable. For locations, we also have the guilds and faction locations, which include the Imperial Sports Federation for all things in-game sports, the Council, who are the illegal governing body, the Mercenary Guild, the Academy of Sciences, the United Resource Workers, and the Interstellar Transport Guild. Now, these will likely come to fruition progressively as each guild and faction gets more established. They will offer missions, reputation, and progression for anybody interested in whatever they have to offer and the gameplay that they offer. Again, these should roll out incrementally, but no idea when that's going to begin. I guess Reputation version 2 would be first, and maybe some other features. Now, we also have, of course, 3 new systems to come in time for Star Citizen's 1.0 release, being Nyx, Castra, and Terra. And these will most definitely roll out one at a time, with Nyx, I guess, coming more likely next year, potentially later this year, but I think it's definitely far more likely for next, and then Castra and Terra likely in that order. The speed at which systems come along will increase incrementally anyway, as is the case with all things. They get better tools, better systems, better practices, just to help speed up that process. So it'll be interesting to see just how quickly they can pump out systems, and then post 1.0 we will get all of the rest. And then finally, we have missions and events, starting with location stories, with it stating new missions and narrative arcs set in specific areas, allowing players to experience the uniqueness of various locations in the verse. And as we know, this year they are going to do some very heavily narratively driven storylines just flowing throughout the patches, offering choices for us, the players. The main storyline is also in the 1.0 column, as you would expect, and this is an alternate way to gain citizenship should you want it. Also being introduced to all the other professions and mechanics that Star Citizen has to offer. So a really important aspect to help onboard players and help them understand how Star Citizen works and what it offers. And then the final one is Station Warfare. This is referring to how players will battle over planetary locations and space stations to gain access to planetary shielding to help protect their ground assets. Not something that I'm too bothered about, but I will certainly give it a go when the time comes. Anyway, there you go. That was the latest roadmap update. Quite a monster of a video. 4.0.2 should be dropping to live tonight, with 4.1 now in sight, I suspect, for end of March, early April, maybe a little later. It depends on where they see the other patches lining up. We'll most definitely see a 4.1.1.2 and whatever else from there on, with each of these features slowly making their way into the verse all the way up to 1.0, getting tested before 1.0 is ready to release officially, and we are talking years there. I guess 4 to 5, we don't know. A lot of great stuff there, some of which is pretty close to releasing, others that are years away, but ultimately it'll all get there eventually, and we will be testing it as it comes. Remember though, the roadmap is a fluid representation of what is the current plan at this time, and will change over time with more additions every fortnight, and here's to seeing some of this stuff come along. I cannot wait. As a reminder, if you are interested in my camping channel, the link is below, but it is completely separate to this channel, as I know a lot of people have no interest whatsoever, and that is obviously okay with me. But with that said, if you do enjoy these videos, please do consider subscribing to me here on YouTube. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. I am live 3 days a week, generally Monday, Wednesday and Friday between 2 and 6 p.m. GMT. You're all more than welcome. The link is below, but I do stream on YouTube as well. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.